When someone sort of says, I have a company called Killing Kittens, you automatically kind of think, people killing kittens? But that's not what this is, right?
Emma Sayle,
founder of Killing Kittens.
From renowned sex parties to a range of unforgettable experiences.
Foreign cars, I make rich look richer.
But why did you feel there was a need to empower women in this way?
We are taught that sex is about the man. This is straight sex, about a man coming. That's the end of sex. That sex is a penis and a vagina, and it's all about the man. The shame and the guilt, I think that's the bit that isn't empowering. It's that we are taught to be good girls.
What is Killing Kittens, Emma?
A space online and offline where women were in control, where they were the ones making the first move, where they could literally talk freely, shag freely, and just sort of be in a safe, non-judgmental environment.
How do you separate it from what some people would describe as a kind of seedy event? People come together, get naked, have sex, and it's, short of a brothel. Welcome to the Second Chance podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Rowe. On this podcast, we talk to people from diverse backgrounds who share their stories of redemption, resilience, and second chance. Go to our YouTube channel so you can watch those interviews, subscribe, share, and click on the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. Good. Thanks for joining me this morning. Where are you in the world today? Are you at home or?
At home, so on the river near Shepperton.
Right,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Don't know that very well. So we have a mutual friend in Amit, right?
Yes, I think everyone has a mutual friend in Amit, don't they?
Yeah, do you still have contact with him? Do you still?
Yeah. No, we're always on WhatsApp and stuff. And meant to. He introduced me to. When did I last see him? About 2 months ago. He introduced me to an investor.
Ah, right. Okay.
In London. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, look, thanks for coming on to my podcast this morning. Let's just kick it off straight away with me and my curiosity about Killing Kittens, because when someone sort of says, I have a company called Killing Kittens, you automatically kind of think, people killing kittens? But that's not what this is, right? What is Killing Kittens, Emma?
It is. Do you know what's funny? It's like there's not many, how few people, it's been 18 years, actually asked why it's called Killing Kittens. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just such a ridiculous name. So it is, it's a business I started in 2005, just out of kind of sort of an anger of a really imbalanced world, and where it was sort of growing up as a real tomboy, and wanting to do everything the boys did, like climb trees and just do loads of sport. And that's, I had really short hair and I played the trombone because no other girls at school played the trombone. And so it kind of, so as a kid on that level, and then you get older and you go into the sort of the dating world, and suddenly it's sort of, actually this is really imbalanced within the sex and dating world, and sort of guys can sort of do whatever they want and they don't get judged, and they can sleep around and have one night stands, and the guilt and the shame and the judgment in girls, especially back then, like 20 years ago, was insane. And sort of, the idea of having a one night stand and getting properly judged and keeping it secret. And so I sort of, and I grew up in the Middle East as well. So I kind of just saw a real imbalance then, and a real military hardcore kind of narcissistic dad as well. So there's imbalance at home. So I always say there was a fire that just kept getting fueled and fueled and fueled. So that when I hit early 20s, I was like, right, enough. And it was when Sex and the City had just come out, and Anne Summers was on the high street, and sort of Lalo sex toys went into Selfridges. And there was this talk of kind of a female sexual revolution going on. And I just thought, well, it's still not, people can talk about it, but it's not, where's a safe space for girls to sort of want to go and explore their sexuality, or ask questions, or just get naked and try with other girls, or just be kind of free sexually. And so I just wanted to create a space online and offline where women were in control, where they were the ones making the first move, where they could literally talk freely, shag freely, and just sort of be in a safe, non-judgmental environment to explore their sexuality. So that's sort of where it started. And the name, there's a cyber slang expression that every time you masturbate, God kills a kitten. So if you're killing a kitten, you're having a wank, basically. I was drunk when that came about.
Why did you feel there was a need to empower women in this way? I mean, I don't know whether it is mythical that women have not always been empowered. They've not always been in control of what they do and what they don't do. And it's more of a male-dominated kind of ego that makes them feel that they're not? Because, I like to think in the real world, women have always been in control. Why did you feel that they weren't, and that there was a need to set
Um,
this space up where they could explore their sexuality?
I think you're right. I think, there's that expression behind every successful man is a woman. And you look back through history, and the courtesans, and even the prostitutes back in hundreds of years ago and stuff, that were held in big high regard. And so they're always, there's always, and I think you look at them, a lot of homes, really, it's, the women sort of wear the trousers and make, I think it's over 80% of the household decisions, the spending decisions and things. So there is, there is that. I think a lot of it is, and there still is that. It's the shame and the guilt. I think that's the bit that isn't empowering. It's that we are taught to be good girls. We are taught that sex is about the man. This is straight sex, about a man coming. That's the end of sex. That sex is a penis and a vagina, and it's all about the man. You're not taught, sex ed at school, but you're not taught what clitoris is. You're not taught about female pleasure. You're not taught that actually, we're allowed to have pleasure. So actually even now I speak to girlfriends of mine about, and I go, well, what do you like sex, and we don't know. They because they've never because we've never thought that actually we should be able to know what we like sexually and actually do something about it, and be able to and have those conversations. So it's sort of it's so I think it's so ingrained in our bones as women through passed from generation to generation to generation, to like, of just be a good girl, be well behaved, and well behaved girls don't go and have one night stands. And yeah, I think it's there, and obviously they have been, and women are very, we are very sexual beings. And I think, when you look at the science of sexuality and the animal, and take out all the social issues and the religion and everything that's made us get to this point, now is actually women are more promiscuous. We are more, our desire drops faster than men's desire long term. So we're naturally way more kind of multiple partners, and getting bored quicker. So actually, as animals, we should be the ones that go and have the affairs and go and cheat and go and leave our other halves. But society's kind of put so much, again, that messaging in us that kind of create the home, be the wife, be the mother, kind of, and guard that, which just came in the 17th century, of guarding that family unit. You look back. I was reading a list the other day of all the things that where women got put in mental institutions for, and there were so many of them that were like sexual urges, masturbating, all these kind of, they were hysterical women. The first vibrators that came out, where actually doctors used them on women to give them an orgasm to control women. It's sort of, I just think, and that's it. I think we've squashed so much of what is natural, um, by how society tells us to behave and what we should be, that we don't know that we could have a voice, or to ask the questions, or um, to turn around to our partners and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm, because you just have that, or I can't say it because, he'll leave me or think I'm a weirdo, or, yeah, so I just think a lot yeah, there's a lot in here.
So then, I mean, it sounds like, what does Killing Kittens do for women then? I mean, tell me a little bit about what Killing Kittens is. So it's there to empower women's sexuality. That's what it sounds like. Part of it is, but it sounds like you set it up for more than just that reason. So what happens at Killing Kittens? I mean, what is it about? How does it take place? Where does it take place? What does it involve? Who's involved? Give me a little bit more detail
Yeah.
about what this
So
space does.
it's kind of hard. I think it's sort of now half online, half offline. So the events side of it, we do events. They're all masked. You have to be a member to attend, and to be a member, you have to be a woman. And then you can bring a guest, whether that's another woman or any gender, or you come on your own. And at the events we have, they're just a big private parties, different all over the world, different venues. And we at the events we have playrooms. So we have rooms that would have kind of the equivalent of maybe four big double beds all there. and it's then so it's kind of up to people whether they want to get naked, whether they want to have sex, whether they want to watch, whether it's just sort of it's there if people want to get involved, and also the main rule at all the events is that women make the first move. So they will the ones that will chat up. You know, if there's a guy at the bar, then he can't speak to women girls he doesn't know. So it kind of it's all I think it's there's difference between being empowered and like being in control, and I think that's part of it in the world we live in. It's a lot of the time it's sort of us feeling like we don't have the power and we're not in control. And it's the guy that makes it's up to him sort of thing. And making the calls and just in life in general. And yeah, and I think so it's flipped. And when you're out and about in a bar and stuff, it's the guys sort of making the first move a lot of the time, and so it was just sort of just flipping the norm on its head. So that actually this was a safe space, and get a lot of like groups of girls that come down and they just like dancing around in their underwear. They don't want to get involved, that without being hit on. It just gives that yeah, sense of empowerment. And so that's the sort of offline. And then online we've got a huge great sort of social dating site set up, which has workshops and webinars and masterclasses online. It's got big chat groups. It's got live chats you can listen to. It's got their social date. It's kind of the dating app side of it. And yeah, big sort of sex positive world. And again, that's but much more all sort of all inclusive. We've actually just rebranded that and split it as a different business called X 2 weeks ago. So what was the KK online side is now a different business to be all inclusive. So it's not just women, and it's just sort of allowing everyone to have a voice sexually, and everyone to and that's that I think that's what it is. It's sort of what started as me pushing the women front 18 years ago, going, well, if guys can say what they want and have a voice sexually, and um then why can't women? But now we're in a world where it's not that binary anymore. There's not, back then it was sort of you were straight, you were gay, and the crazy one in the middle was bisexual, which was totally out there. Whereas, nowadays bisexual is really boring. So the world we've now created is for everyone, and like just disenfranchised people, sexy, to come and just sort of get their a voice in the bedroom, to ask for what they want, to actually go and explore what they might like. Because I just think, that we spend billions, this world spends billions and billions on mental health and well-being, and like physical health and well-being. Um, and people spend a fortune on apps and getting, their sort of mental health up, and going up to the gym and all the physical side. But, your sexual well-being and your sexuality drives every single person on this planet more than anything. It's what makes us who we are as animals. And so why wouldn't you spend the same amount on working out what makes you tick sexually and your sexual health and well-being? So that's the big push at the moment. So yeah, so what started with Killing Kittens is with women at the core, which still is on the event side. The online side has turned into, yeah, We Are X, which is just sort of anyone's sort of all adult life to um, be empowered on that front.
When
And
you talk
yeah.
about the sort of offline stuff, like the event stuff, and you talk about it's to empower women to be in control of what's going on in that space. How do men get involved then? If it's all membership for women, how do men turn up at the bar and can't make the first move or do anything? How do men get invited to these
Yeah,
events?
because you can buy a couples ticket. So you can invite. So on the online world, we're pretty much 50-50 women to guys. I think we've got about 180,000 members, and they're pretty much 50-50 guys, girls. And but to actually buy the tickets to the events, you have to be a woman, but you can invite a male member. So you invite a male member to a couple's ticket, and then so you can come along together. So sometimes it's not some are genuine couples, some are you're just bringing a guy friend along. So that's so you're still so actually when it comes to the events, it's not there are always slightly more women. It's probably kind of 60-40% on that split, and a lot of the guys that come along aren't necessarily in the couple. Um, sort of married or girlfriend boyfriend, they've come as someone's plus one. So yeah.
How do you separate it from what some people would describe as a kind of seedy event? People come together, get naked, have sex, and it's, short of a brothel. How do you separate and educate those people who think that this is just an opportunity to have an orgy, for people to have, open sex with anybody they want to at an event?
Well, but the thing is, it's how you see that. I mean, a lot of people, um, that's what they want to do. They want to come down and actually, couples want to come down and get involved in like a group sex. A single girl might feel empowered because she wants to come down and sleep with some strangers. It it kind of it again. It's that psychology of what you see as sex is. You know what I mean? It's like lots of people having sex. To some people, is like that's disgusting, and to other people it's like fully empowering and like a release, and they having the most amazing time and wake up the next morning going, oh my god, did that actually just happen? And they feel really confident in themselves and their bodies, and again, and in control and empowered. That's it's sort of it's and that's part of it, that problem that we have of that, again, that messaging of that sex is dirty and it's seedy, um and you go, when some people have said that to me, it's disgusting. I'm like, why is it, what's disgusting, which bit is disgusting, about a group of people choosing to have sex with each other? They're animals and it's just sex. It's sort of it's that, and people can't really say it because you just go, well, it's sort of been put in our bones and our psyche that that's disgusting, that sex should just be between two people in private, in the sanctity of marriage. And I'm a Christian, go to church, always have done. I find the sex and religion really fascinating, and it's our local vicar around here is he his wife's ordained, and but she doesn't practice because he doesn't believe in women vicars, and you just sort of it's just there's a real juxtaposition I find with now with a lot of religion and actually and the spiritual animal world coming out in humans as it kind of should be.
What fascinates me is that you've been doing this for 18 years, Emma. What have you found changed? Because I can imagine at the beginning of this process, it was quite liberating to see women feel empowered and have that control in these events and stuff. What have you seen over those 18 years that still surprises you?
Do you know what yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's been 18 years, but I think because sex and gender have evolved so much and so fast in the last 18 years that it constantly feels new. Like we're having to keep on our toes the whole time, changing things, like splitting the business, like, even using the word woman, it's sort of now it's, well, identifying as a woman. It's like, where's the line where, it's sort of, so keeping up with that side of things has been fascinating. The fact that what was very binary is now a thousand shades of grey, and constantly evolving. And yeah, so that side of thing. I think also I when I look back and then you realize how far we've come, is actually now more and more people will tell their mates they've come to a KK party. They'll say, oh, I slept with this guy, or I slept with two girls, or it's sort of, it's much more. That's what I love hearing, that actually what was once very hidden and embarrassed and couldn't possibly tell their girlfriends. And that was one main reason of setting it up. Even, a lot of girls I've met couldn't even tell their best friend what they were thinking about sexually, or that they'd had a one night stand. And you just think that's just wrong if you can't tell your closest humans, actually who you really are and what you really want and really enjoy. Then that's not a particularly, nice situation to be in. So that, and then we get, we're constantly getting messages from members, and you say that it's changed their life. It's you made their, sorry, dogs, their relationship, if they're in a couple, stronger. They finally sort of communicated after sort of maybe being together 10 years and never ever having a conversation about what they have thought about sexually. So it's taking away that stigma and shame and actually giving them a place where they can go. And online we have massive chat groups with different themes. So you can join a chat group that might be a women's only one. There's a men's only one. There's, like kink ones or just curious, or there's, a whole different one. So you can, and just sort of chat to people and ask questions and realize that, you're not some weirdo for having a certain thought. And then, one of the big things I've loved seeing and hearing, and we get a lot of it, is women sort of, and it kind of fits a bit with the second chance, is that it's sort of that women getting married and going into relationships in their 20s, that have ended, there've been like sort of full on abusive relationships or arranged marriages, or all thinking they have to get married, and actually, in their 30s, of getting out and realizing that they're lesbians, or you're just bi-curious, or just getting that power back and realize, of a second chance to, get out there and live and feel strong and in control, and not in an abusive relationship that they were in their 20s, or an arranged marriage that they were in. So we get a lot of our members, are that's probably why the average age of our membership's probably about 33, 34. um, so we do get a lot of women joining who in their 40s, who are coming into that, the second phase. I'm like 45, so a lot of my girlfriends are doing it. That phase of actually, fuck it. You know what I mean? You just go, oh, you've got one life, and you stop caring what people think. And that's when you start asking the questions and going, why have I, put up with this for these kind of relationships for 20 years, or gone out with the same sort of guy for 20 years, and always, never really said what I want in a bedroom. So, let's go and do a BDSM workshop, or rope play workshop or something. So, and just get out dating, um, have a threesome, and you know what I mean? It's like I think women get a kind of second wind in their 40s,
That's
and
really interesting. How do
especially,
you keep people safe?
yeah.
How does an environment like this? I mean, I know it's an all women's sort of membership, and they invite people, but how do you keep people safe? What do you need to do to ensure that people that turn up at these events or take part in any of the other events are safe, and protected from any kind of weirdos, as you mentioned?
Well, on that level, everyone has to be a member, so that, you have to apply to be a member of the Kittens Association, which is the one, as I said, the women's only one. So they're the ones who can buy the tickets. But the person you then bring, your guest, has to be a member as well. So they've gone through, proof of like approval stage of showing that they're a real person. So they have to take the whole selfies in the right, the position to show that, they're not some fake account stuff. So on that front, it's safe. They are all actual members, so it's not just sort of random people buying tickets. And then at the end of the day, the guys that come with a girl, that they're kind of their responsibility. So actually, the women buying the couples tickets know that the person they bring, they're responsible for. So that it's not like that, they're not going to want to get kicked out of the community. So we've kind of, yeah, in 18 years, touch wood, haven't had issues. And I think also, if you take the testosterone factor out of like just groups of men out on the pool, I think that's where the trouble happens. That's where, the whole testosterone kind of lads will come out in bars and pubs, but you take that out, and it's much more feminine energy, um
And
in
that,
these events.
what about? I mean, given that I don't know this, and I ask these questions out of ignorance, really. But given that these are paid events, does that bring you into? Has it over the years at all brought you into, or brought the attention of the authorities, the police, or anybody to your events? I mean, these are grown adults making decisions for themselves, so it shouldn't. But I wonder
Mm.
if it has at any point.
No, it hasn't, because they're paying to come to the events. They're not, no one's being paid for sex, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So we're not paying like 20 girls to be in there. Every single person in there has paid a ticket to be in there, and it's a members club. So we've used loads of venues around Mayfair and Westminster. We know the council. We use clubs now. We take over big clubs in London. We have no issue with it, because it's a good demographic of people. It's the female side of it, makes it a lot better behaved on that front when out in nightclubs. And so it's sort of, no one's really had any issue with it. Um,
I know that you set up this app. You talked about the app. What is the app for? What does the new app? Because I read something about it's also a platform where parents of young girls or guys, I suspect, can let people know where they are when they're going on blind dates and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
So that one's Safe Date. So that's an app that we launched about 4 years ago. It's a really simple app. It was kind of we were building this technology to go on the main site to do with Killing Kittens, and because what we found in the chat groups were people were going out on a date, just a Tinder date or something with someone they hadn't met, and they would put in their group where they were going and say, if I haven't checked back into this group by midnight, then send out a search party. And again, it goes back to that they couldn't feel they could tell their close friends for judgment a lot of the time. So we were building it for that there, and then decided that actually that it's an app that actually should have, kids could use going on play dates or teenagers going with their parents and out, out for dates to cinema or whatever. Um, on dates. So in which case we built it as a standalone app, so it wasn't considered sex and adult. And it's very simple. You just put in the date details of where you're going, where you met the person, so that you could be offline, or you could say that you met them on Tinder and this is their username. So the time you just put in the details of the date, you put in your safe contacts, phone numbers and email addresses, and you can have more than one. You can have as many as you want. And so they don't know. So your safe people will not know you've done this unless you don't check in. So it keeps that kind of security. So rather than Find My Friend and stuff like that tracks, you can track and the person knows where you're going. So it's kind of that if you are going somewhere, you don't really want your friends to know where you're going. You can still, they won't know you're going anywhere unless you don't check back in to the app. So you can then put the time you want to check back in. So check back in at like 11 o'clock at night. And if you haven't checked back into the app, and the app will give you warnings, then your safe people will get a message saying so and so had you as a safe person. They were at this place at this time with these people. Um, so yeah, it's quite straightforward.
What does it say about? I mean, what do people say about you then? Somebody who's set up an event like this, Emma, at such a young age. You've been doing it for a long time now. How have people judged you as an individual who sets up a platform, an opportunity to empower women? I mean, what's people said about you? When I say people, I don't know who I mean, but what have people said about you as an individual who set up something like this and felt the need to set up something like this to help aid women, empower women?
Uh, Lots of things.
I bet.
Yeah, get abuse weekly.
Do you really on a weekly
And
basis?
yeah, no, yeah, no, oh no, I get, yeah, messages and
And
stuff.
do those messages come from the partners of, say, women or men who attend these events who think that you've interfered or broken or?
No, no, I've never. No, I think I've probably only been named in two divorce cases. But their hubbies were arseholes, so I got blamed for like taking away their wife. Whereas I'm like, no, I was just, looking after them type thing. Um, and no, no, mainly it's just sort of people I don't know. So through social media, you just get get messages, and you're accused of, we're being disgusting and a madam and running a brothel, and so there's a lot, yeah, a lot like that. But there's a lot. I think that when people feel threatened and insecure, that brings out just a nasty human being. Brings out the worst in people. And I think so. You got two types. You get of the abuse. You get. I can see it sometimes when out and you get introduced, and you get the wives who think I'm going to take away the husbands, and they don't get it because I'm doing what I'm doing, and there's sex involved. But then will look at them and feel sorry for them, and then they're not a very happy, insecure person. And most of the time, I think they just need some good sex in their life. Because if that's how they're seeing it, because the irony is, it's actually about them. It's not about the husband. So you get that side, and then the other side is the husband, the men, and husbands feeling threatened that and so they're the ones, very controlling type of alpha male who feel like you're gonna take I'm gonna take the wife away, and then so it makes them feel threatened and insecure. And again, I say that, and it is, it's like, don't you want to secure missus who is happy and secure, because then you actually get more freedom. If your other half is secure and happy in life, then actually crack on. It's like, my husband is out and about the whole time, and I'll sort him out going to strip clubs and stuff. I'm like, whatever, what I mean? I trust him, and I'm secure, and so you get more freedom. He lets me, run riot and be in London till 4 or 5 in the morning, whatever. He doesn't check up on me. It's sort of, but I found in the past, when I've had boyfriends that, are constantly, where are you? What are you doing? Why won't you answer the phone? It's actually made me go, sod this. I'm just going to go and cheat, because they don't trust me. So it brings that's the irony of it. It's the flip of so the ones that are like so tightly controlling, you just want to go, come on.
You mentioned there are rules, obviously, to these events that are offline, where a male cannot make an approach to a woman because you want to move it away from what would happen in a normal nightclub or in a bar or something. But that happens with women chatting up men.
Yeah.
But you also said that the members and the guests at these events have to wear masks. Is this something they have to wear throughout the whole of the events? And
No, it's just at the beginning. So just at the beginning, and it was kind of, I hate the mask. They're so uncomfortable. So I always joke it was like this thing that I brought in right at the beginning. This like crazy 20-year-old that just wanted the whole mask thing. Because I think so. It's just for the beginning bit, and I think especially back when I launched it, it was much more sort of secretive and taboo, and didn't want to be seen to be going to these places. It gave people that extra layer of anonymity to kind of. And then when they felt comfortable, they could take the mask off, which pretty much everyone has their mask off, within an hour. You have a drinks reception to start with, and then we say, take the mask off after that. So there aren't many people who leave the mask on all night long. It was that kind of just added, just a bit of a show, but also at the same time, just to let people feel like they're in this world, but they have a layer between them and the world, to hide behind.
there's no doubt that just the way you explain what you've done, how you do what you do, and your character kind of shines through in this conversation. But I have to ask where it comes from, Emma. What was, if you was to describe yourself, how would you describe yourself, Emma? Who is Emma when you take away the work that you do? How did Emma get to a place where she felt the need to do something like this? I get it that you want to empower women and that you were fed up with people judging women because they wanted to have sex with somebody whenever they wanted to, in the same way that men feel that they can. I just want to understand a little bit more about who Emma is. So who is Emma?
Thing, um, and it's a lot. I think a lot of it is the background I had. I was the eldest, and I went to boarding school at like 7.5, and I was the one that looked after everyone. And that's, I think a lot of it, I have a real burning kind of sense of injustice of like, if if I don't agree with something, then I've always been that person that even when tiny was like, no, just because everyone's telling me that that's how it is, no. Um, and just I remember when I was about 9, and everyone, you had to get weighed every 2 weeks, and I just said no, and just got 9-year-old girlfriends at boarding school to protest and stop being weighed, because I was like, this is not right. I think they have always had that, but I think part of it as well is like when going to boarding school, and that it was back when you didn't have access to. It was pre-child act when I first went, so you didn't have access to the phone. So I think it was like 2.5 months of, or 2 months of not speaking to parents, and so I was in a dorm with other little 7-year-old girls, and was, I think very quickly I was the one to look after the ones around me, to make sure everyone else was okay. And um I think a lot of it is fueled from that, is that everything I've ever done, and all the way through school and this, is that seeing the bigger, I've always see the big picture, and the people, the underdogs, and the people around me. I'll always see. I think it's an energy thing as well. I'll walk into a room, I always have, and it's exhausting a lot of time, and just pick up people's energies, and I'll instantly know the ones that aren't happy or upset and that need it. Just sort of, and it's just that's just sort of how I am. And I think in my 20s it drained the hell out of me and I didn't have any boundaries whatsoever. But some good therapy helped me out in my 30s and stuff on that whole boundaries kind of side. And now, I feel it and stuff. It's that rescue of becoming a coach kind of analogy of actually, I'll help people out, but I don't get emotionally, so yeah, drained. And I think, and business wise, it's happened as well. I have an amazing team and I could just sort of walk away probably for a month and it wouldn't affect the running of the business. And because I've just sort of let go, let go of it on it
It's
all.
interesting because you talk about how you've been there for so many people from the age of 7. Who's been there for you then? Because you say there were no boundaries in your teens, early 20s, no boundaries, no control. I take that to mean, which meant I suspect that you were a little bit wild and did what you wanted to do where you wanted to do it, and that's brought
Mm.
about who you are and what you do today, giving other people the opportunity to do that as well. Who was there for you then, apart from the therapist?
Do you know, I have an amazing relationship with my mum, who and I think a lot of that is because our relationship's properly come about as adults. So we're mates. Um, and I think, yeah, Dad left her almost as like around the same time I started KK. So we've just become best friends. And I think, yeah, so, um, that and I started actually I started at the same when I started Killing Kittens. I actually started a big group called the Sisterhood, which was a big group of girls. We do lots of crazy races and sport activities around the world for different charities, and that again was um just creating a space for girls to have their tribe, have their, because a lot when in their 20s came to London, didn't really know anyone. So I've kind of that of those some of those girls I've sort of are at my absolute rocks, and they're always there, and it's always had like a big WhatsApp group as well. And it's that, a lot of girls have, getting divorced, whatever, have just come into that, and I've got them to do some crazy big extreme sport race or something. And having that, I think, that's part of it, not just KK, but the sisterhood is that. um I think as girls, we and the good girl and find a husband, and we lose ourselves a bit, and it becomes about the boyfriend or the husband, or being a mum. um and I think that, yeah, it's sort of that side of actually trying to get everyone to have a voice and the confidence to um be unapologetically selfish, I call it. And it's kind of taken sort of sidetracked a bit from your question, but I
But you
think,
haven't, because it's
yeah.
interesting that you say it's about giving those a voice. Why do you think that's necessary, though? It sounds like, if you are a wife and you are a mother, or you're in a particular relationship that is 9 to 5, I'll say, or the norm, which is what lots of people seek. Is there anything wrong with that?
No, I mean, I'm a wife. I'm a mum of three, but I also know that's made me realize even more how easy it is to lose yourself, to lose friends, because you just they're knackered and you just can't be asked to go out for a drink, or you can't. And and actually the husbands are way more sort of stuck in their, they'll go golfing, they do their sports at nights in the week or stuff. They'll have, their routine pretty much, stays a lot of the time. And we just sort of will be the ones, looking at, as much as we are living in 2023. Most of the household stuff is still, even if you're both working and equal earners and stuff, it's still done by most household, kid stuff is still done by the mum. So I've had to, often, my kids are like 8, 6, and 4, so it's exhausting. But make myself go out, what I mean? Make my Sometimes I don't want to, but just because I know how important it is, and I remind myself how good I feel once I'm in the company of girlfriends, and with a warm wine in hand, actually how energizing it feels. So you just come back and, you be a better mum, you be a better wife. You get that, you need some you. Um, So, I always ask people is like, what, people who work 9 to 5 long, I go, well, what's your hustle? What's your, what's your thing? Everyone, you need a thing that is your selfish thing that you like doing and that, fills your soul. And I think we're really bad at that as women and mums, wives, we're really bad at that because it's automatically sort of in us to be a bit of a martyr.
So, what would you say to those that are listening to it? Because I'm sure there will be lots of women listening to this who want to, find the energy to go out and do the things that you find the energy to go out and do. So you have that selfish streak for yourself, because that, as you say, makes you a better mum. It makes you a better wife. It makes you a better person. It gives you the energy. What do you say to those women who are listening to this right now, Emma, and thinking, I'd love to, but I just can't because I've got to put my 4-year-old to bed and be there when they wake up, if they wake up, etc.
Mm. It's that, I mean, everyone's in different situations, but a lot of the time when people say they can't, they can. They can turn around to their other halves and go, I'm going out on, I want to go out for a drink. I'm going to go for an hour. I want, you're going to parent. It's not babysitting. They're also parents. They can parent their own children. And there's that analogy of when you're up in an aeroplane and the oxygen masks come out and they say put the oxygen mask on you first, parents put the oxygen mask on you first and then your children. It's that energy. You've got to put that oxygen mask on you, because if you're not getting oxygen, then how do you expect your kids to get oxygen and your husband to get oxygen? It's by being selfish, and unapologetic about it, then you're going to be the best wife and the best mother and the best person, really. But it's just really easy to get in a rut, properly get in a rut. I have girlfriends say that to me all the time. They're like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in 8 months. I've just sort of got in this space of just being so tired and just staying at home." And and they're like, "This feels so good, and we need to do this more often." And it's that kind of thing. Same with exercising.
It,
Even if that's what you do.
it absolutely. You sound like someone who's in total control of who you are and what your destiny is, apart from bringing up 3 kids, which can obviously take you in a different direction because you can't dictate what those little ones
Yeah.
want to do and don't want to do. What are your challenges then, Emma?
I might sound like I'm in shock. Do you know what? I'm not. I am. Yeah, I've had a bit of a midlife crisis in the last year or so. I think COVID. I'm such an outside out. I'm such a human to human person. I'm such, out face to face. I don't really like the digital world much at all. The irony of having a tech business. But and that realizing, I'm a big sports person, and I've, used the term of, I've had to bench myself business wise and stuff because we went so into like the online world during COVID and tech, and that's not me, and play my best players. And they're still being played, and sort of felt just, like feeling a bit redundant, and not redundant, but I think that I've had to get my head around what's ego and what's self. Of kind of, is it my ego that actually I'm not needed anymore, and of having to remind myself that actually it's a nice position to be in, that I have stepped back and I'm not really running it anymore business wise, because I've got an amazing team, and that's great one day. Depends what day of like the hormonal month I'm in. And the next week I'm like, I'm perimenopausal as well. That is that full paranoia of like, God, they're trying to nick my business and no one cares about me anymore. And who am I if I'm not, I've been doing it for so long. There's a bit now of, well, what's my purpose now? Like what can I do now that, it's all properly running itself and doing really well, and the, social dating outside of it, and it's great, and Killing Kittens is great, and got a great events team, and but it's sort of it's questioning my purpose of, I'm that fighter, I'm the disruptive one, and like, I'm not happy about this, bulldoze, let's do this, and it's kind of all, it's just sort of, running, and we're at the front of it all, and it's great, but sort of part of me is sort of, yeah, what do I need to disrupt now?
But why do you have to think like that? Because I have these conversations often. Why can't you just enjoy the benefits of the success of Killing Kittens? Like you say, you've got to the point where you've got an amazing team around you. I've read, it's millions of pounds worth of company. Why can't you just sit back and enjoy the success of what you created?
You're totally right. And actually, that's what I tell myself every day, and I'm actually getting a lot calmer about it, and enjoying it, and enjoying hanging out with my kids and doing the school pickups and things. And actually, I've been roped into being the chair of the PTA last year for my sins. So to be honest, I think that's and that's been fun because there's a little Church of England primary school. So there were apparently a few parents that did not want me doing it. So I think that's fed the bit of the beast that's in me to kind of prove people wrong,
Don't want you to
basically.
do it because you're the character you are, or because of the business that you run.
Because of the business that I run, the sex side of things. But I get on really well with the head. Is that we don't want you going anywhere, and actually, I have changed a bit, sort of how things have been done events wise, and we've raised loads of money in the process. So, and taken a lot of things online that was sort of offline. So that I have enjoyed. I've really enjoyed doing that, and it's for my kids. So it's for my kids' school. So, um, I think, yeah, that's been my own little project, which actually has helped me massively, brain wise, in the last year. Yeah, last year and a half, I've been doing it.
How do you, and when do you have that, and does it make a difference what you tell your kids about your business? I mean, a business is a business, right? Whatever that business is, I get that. But out of interest, since you've had kids and you started a business long before you had kids, but since you had kids, does it make you think differently about the conversation you need to have with them about your business? Or is it they will succeed you? Your business will continue to grow and continue to be the success that it is, that your kids can take it over from you? Is that something you'd want?
Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, me and my husband joke that the 4-year-old girl is set to be the next CEO. She's an absolute force of nature. Um, but no, do you know what? I think what it has made me realize with the kids is actually it's fueled the flames even more of the imbalance, and making sure actually the girls think they can do what, like, I've got two boy, girl, girl. So the two girls think that they can do what Raf does, another Raf. The boy can, because already, he's 8, and the middle one's 6. She'll come out with things about, no, but boys do that. And I'm like, where's this? So that it's made me really realize, actually, where's the messaging? Where does it come from? Who is? Because it's not coming from in the home, because we're very much sort of, and the girls do football. They're the only two girls in their Saturday morning football club out of 100 kids. They you know what I mean? Our girls are little toughies who, and the way I speak to them and my husband speaks to them about being whatever they want to, it's sort of where are these messaging coming from, and also on the sex education kind of side of things, it um I'm very conscious of that, actually a part of the issue of, and you go to it'd be very easy to do. I think that's part of it, of doing it and saying the same things that you grew up being told, and expressions or terms, is being very very matter of fact. So it's like the 6-year-old girl. So when she was 4, asked, so the Raf would have been 6, asked what Lily's willy was called, and I just went, as a vagina. I thought, you know what I mean? I just didn't even think about it, because I thought, I'm not going to give it a silly name. I'm not going to, kind of, that some people do. It's just a body part. Um, and the 8-year-old the other week, they've just started learning. Nima went round about kind of the basic sex ed, which is body, which is the parts of the body and what the real words are and stuff. And he's always, I get changed in front of him, and he sort of laughs about it. And I'm like, boobs, and so I'm like, they're just a body part. So I've said that loads and loads of times to him. Like, what's so funny? That's an elbow, that's a knee, those are boobs. So it's just a body part, Raf. And his teacher came out, in March, and said, "Oh, we're doing just to know. I thought you might like it." And she was saying, "This is this breast," and all the boys in the class started laughing. And Raf swung round and went, "It's just a body part." So it's kind of just little small wins, and that's kind of what I can do in my little micro little world, to try and make a bit of change, and to try and normalize. So actually, when my kids are older, raffle, the consent and the boundaries, and actually know about female pleasure and everything, um and that the girls will, be out there being whoever they want to be.
It's brave, and it's you're absolutely right. It's normalising things that that are not normalized. What do you want people to take away from this conversation, Emma? When you talk about, empowering women with Killing Kittens, which is the company you set up many years ago, and you have the dating app and other digital platforms for people to sort of engage with. You talk about empowering your girls in particular to realize that they can be who they want and they don't have to be shy of who they are as young girls, as you do with your son Raf. But what would you want people to take away from this conversation, having listened to you talk about the work that you do, the company you set up, and the person you are?
Um, I no, I think mainly, and it's one thing, I'm always telling myself is you have one life. You have one life, and if you spend that life worrying about what everyone thinks about you, worrying about what everyone thinks, and what everyone thinks dictating what you do, then you're not going to basically be the happiest version of yourself. You're going to be a prisoner to the opinions of other people. And the older I've got, the less of that prison. Yeah. Now I'm just sort of, as I said, that unapologetically selfish side of things, and just sort of backing yourself um, to stop. I think if there's that bit that you worry so much about, especially when you're younger, of what people think, that you don't spend enough time on what you really want, what you really think, what you really want to do, what makes you tick. And like, 'cause, there's so many people that don't come out until they're sort of, 50s and 60s, because they spent so long being too scared to do anything. I think it's that fear, isn't it? It's fear just holds everyone um back. So it's trying to get rid of that
It's
part.
interesting because at the beginning of this conversation you talked about the reason you set up Killing Kittens and why you called it Killing Kittens.
Mm.
Having, witnessed what you've witnessed with women in particular over these years, what have you
Yeah.
come to learn about the sexuality of women, and the weaknesses and the strengths that will dictate what you go on to do and how you continue to shape your company? I'm curious, as you say, women were unable to be as free sexually, um, 18, 20 years ago as they are today, and obviously things change. What have you learned, Emma?
I've learned, I mean, I've always said that girls aren't really, there's a sexuality spectrum 1 to 7, and men are much more sort of 1 or 7. I've always said girls are sort of in the middle. It's why we're much more touchy-feely. We, check out other women faster than guys do, if people are honest. So one thing I have learned is actually it's true, and it's sort of that natural instinct in a lot of women, and loads of girls I know are sort of will say that actually if they, split from their hubby, then they might well go and fall in love with a woman. So I've learned even more. It's kind of back to that actually we're on a constantly evolving spectrum, I think, when it comes to our sexuality and who we are. But one thing I have learned massively is everyone sort of separated, sex and work, and the headspace, the industries, and sort of what makes us, where we are when work and or in the bedroom. But actually, the one it's confidence. I've learned that actually if you can have a voice in the bedroom and ask for what you want in the bedroom, you can then go out and you can ask for what you want in the boardroom and in life in general. It's sort of the hardest place probably to ask and be honest is in the bedroom. Um, and if you nail that part and the communication part, then that's your entire life, being able to go and have these conversations, awkward conversations, or negotiate a pay rise, or um, just own it in a boardroom
And why is
if you
it
can
so
own it in a
awkward?
bedroom.
What have you discovered? Why is it so awkward to have that question in a bedroom?
I think it goes back to again that it's that messaging, it's that what we've been told, to believe when we're kids, and that sort of the shame and the guilt, and as you asked about the group sex side of things, is that instant stigma, and it's if there's a group of people having sex, then that's dirty and that's seedy and that's gross, and it's sort of really dialing that back into, well, why is it gross? Why does someone think that that's seedy? What makes it seedy? And actually, it's very down for people to actually come up with the exact answer, because it's just that well, we've been told it's seedy. We've been told, people having sex is seedy, and it's dirty, and it's kind of some people come out with stuff, and they don't know, when you actually get them to really break it up and go, why, that you can't, well, that's just an automatic sort of reaction and response that is, your conscious mind is saying that sex equals dirty. You go, well, where's that messaging from?
But what about? It makes me think about the kind of I don't know, the fantasies that you must hear people want at these kinds of parties. I mean, I don't know if that's quite how it works. People just turn up to the event. But there must be, requirements. I mean, you talk about masks, you talk about men are not allowed to approach women, but you must have heard every desire and fantasy that man and woman could have. How do you manage that from a Killing Kittens point of view?
Yeah, well, you hear about it a lot, but do you know what? It's kind of actually, it is quite simple. There aren't many. There isn't a whole, plethora most fantasies kind of boil down to sort of that being in control or lack of control. Really, that that it is, there's a lot, the sort of kidnapping or tying up or and going into the BDSM world, the rules and the way that world operates. Yeah, it's fascinating, the kind of the dominance and the submissive side of it, or and it's power. Everything in life is power, really. And I think when it comes to relationships, it's power. It's the power balance, and there's always going to be a constantly shifting power dynamic within everything, whether it's business or business relationships, personal relationships, romantic relationships. That's sort of one thing. It's just sort of very interesting.
It makes me wonder how you're able to separate, the things you must have heard, discovered, learned over the years. How you're still in an industry, despite everything you must have heard, seen, and discovered, and that is testimony to your commitment to your business. And I suppose, my last question is, what does the future hold? I mean, where do you go? Because you've set this business up, it's been a success, you're developing the kind of tech side of it. But what next? Apart from the fact that you're able to hand it over to your team to run for you, and you're sort of chomping at the bit, if you like, to sort of take back some control. And what direction would you like to take it in that you haven't taken it in yet?
Well, I mean, I've always said, that the future's human, and I've never liked the whole, the future's female slogans and stuff. I grew up all over the world and have friends of every nationality and religion and sexuality and gender, and I hate labels. I hate labels. And I just think in 10 years' time, um, in 10 years' time, I think all the labels will be going. I think we're in a crazy time at the moment with even the whole LGBTQIA two S, like the whole. I don't think any more letters can be added to it. To be honest, I think it's like getting to that point now, and give it 10 years. It's just going to be whoever you want to be, and just without having to sort of go, well, I'm this, I'm that. So I think that, and then that's kind of partly why we've our whole the sex, the um dating app, the social dating app we've launched now is called WeRx, because it's just sort of and it's everyone. So it's not a lot of the dating apps out there at the moment, are very much, they're in like boxes. So there's one, that's more in the threesome kind of polyamorous one. A lot of the main ones are kind of, oh, the Bumbles and the Tinders and stuff are much more straight. You've got Her, which is very, more queer and lesbian, bi, but very female. So I think, what we want to do, and the way I see it, is just sort of it's just one big platform, one big sex positive platform for everyone and anyone. Because I do think people just chop and change. So you can't. A lot of people label themselves, and then 6 months later there's another label.
What does
Um,
WeRx allow people to do that engage with the app?
So on there, and the reason why it's a social dating app, it's kind of sort of a social network. Social network meets dating app. So when you're on there, you can join different workshops and webinars. So we have different master, and that's everything from confidence, the art of seduction, striptease, basic kind of rope play, tantric. There's loads of different workshops and things on there that you can attend. Then there's all the different chat groups that you can join. So you can join the chat groups. So we do mixers chat groups. So they're ones that are only there for sort of 3 days. So it's just a quick sort of chat. You can group you can join with like 200 people in and ask questions that's on a topic. And we're doing like live chats on there as well. So a bit like sort of Instagram live chats meets kind of Clubhouse, because they're audio chats where we have experts taking it, and then you listen and you can ask questions as the talk goes along. So we had a dominatrix on last week talking about her whole history and story of how she got into being a dominatrix and all the ins and outs of that. And then you've got the dating side of it. So you can search for people within 10 miles of you. But what we have got out on it as well is, I think, like 27 different genders and about 50 different things you could be in sexually. So it's a much more, and then if your vanilla interests as well. So they're the things like wine or Netflix and chill, or so we've got a lot of different options like that, as opposed to what do you do for a living. It's much more who are you as a person, what makes you tick, kind of options. And yeah, so that.
Well, look, it's been great having you on, because it's quite liberating to because, as you say, these conversations, even in 2023, can be quite taboo for some people. Talking about sex, talking about orgies, talking about threesomes, talking about empowering what you want as opposed to pleasing somebody else is really deep and interesting. And for you, it's something you've known for God knows how many years, but I'm sure there'll be lots of people listening to this who have no idea that these platforms exist where they could go out there and explore a safe something and fulfill their own desires. And I'm all for it myself. I do believe that people should go out there and be empowered by what they want and not what they think other people want of them, in particular their own partners. And I say that with hesitation, that my wife goes out there and starts checking out your website. But look, Emma, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with me your insights. Thank you for watching or listening to the Second Chance podcast, where we share stories of redemption, hope, resilience, and second chances. Who deserves a second chance? Who has the right to give someone a second chance? And is a second chance even deserved? That's what Second Chance is all about. So subscribe if you want to be kept up to date with new episodes.